What is up, boxing fans around the world? Fight Hype family checking in from my hotel down here in Los Angeles, California. Before I hit the road back home to Las Vegas, got Tim Tszyu and Tony Harrison a fight to call back in the office in Vegas. But before I depart from Los Angeles, we got to touch on what was definitely the better of the two press conferences yesterday in LA, Beverly Hilton Hotel. I was down there. Got a chance to talk with Bernard Hopkins and Calvin Ford and Oscar De La Hoya and Gervonta Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia, everyone on hand. And it was a fun day, man. And I just wanted to go over a few things. Sun Tzu said every battle is won before it's fought. And let's take a look at, maybe play a little armchair psychologist, but really take a look at the rehydration clause and how everything looked in Los Angeles yesterday heading into what is definitely going to be the biggest fight so far of the year, April 22nd with Gervonta and Ryan Garcia. And I just want everyone to get in the chat for a minute and we'll begin, let me quiet this up a little bit, but I hope everyone has had a good week so far. We're on our Friday and just going to let some people get into the chat and we'll take a look. We'll take a look at we'll take a look at how things shook out. Gervonta actually did lightly punch Ryan Garcia. And just gonna again let some people filter into the chat on this beautiful Friday morning here in Los Angeles, and we'll get started. So Unique Styles, what's up, brother? Says, I think the fight goes just like the presser. Tank wins, but Ryan holds his own and makes it super close. Good input there, Unique Styles. Appreciate that. And then shout out also to It's Jay. What's up, Loco323? Loco323 been in a lot of our Fight Hype live chats. And I'm just going to let a few more folks filter their way in. And then in about a minute here, we'll get started and we'll get rocking. So already about 54 people in here. And I'll give another minute. But yeah, it was a good day. Got some notes here. We'll go over what takeaways from the presser, takeaways from everything. Ryan not as big as originally was thought, and we'll take a look at some comparison photos from the Mario Barrios fight and Ryan yesterday in his face-off. Talk about the art of war with the rehydration clause. Ryan calling his shot. Ryan kind of verbally countering Tank the way he might be able to the way he walked him into some of those verbal counters. Maybe walk him into the hook, but have a few things to look at heading into this fight where Gervonta is obviously the favorite on paper, deservedly so. So, Brother Fax saying, oh, what's up? Tank gonna lose, says Brother Fax. So you're going with the underdog Ryan Garcia, Gypsy Man. What's good, bro? Good to see you, Gypsy Man. Massimo Caprino. How's it going, Sean? How's it going, Massimo? Good to see you, brother. Molly Mall in the house. Yes, sir, Iski. All right, so let's get it popping, man. Let's get the show on the road. First, we'll just take a look back. We'll circle back to
even among current world champions.
Everything off.
He's a three-division multi-world champion.
There we go.
He's also unbeaten. 28-0. 26 of his wins have come by knockout. He is Gervonta Tank Davis.
What's up, OG Chef Corey? I see you guys in the chat. Let's just take a look at this quick vid. Right away, Tank kind of maybe meant, psychologically asserting some dominance there, putting his fist to Ryan's chin, and Ryan does put his chin back or his fist back up, but Tank quickly batted it back down there. And then Tank is telling him that's all you got is the left hook. That's all you got is the left hook. And right there, yeah, he did connect. He did touch the chin right there of Ryan Garcia. I know Ryan said after, started slipping shots a little bit and playing around like, you know, he didn't land, but I actually being there 2 or 3 rows back, you could see it nudged his chin a little bit. And again, this doesn't, you know, we're playing a little armchair psychologist here. Ryan Garcia, at the end of the day, could win this fight by knockout. But you touch a guy, you know, you touch a guy, even a Evander Holyfield, you touch a Riddick Bowe, a Bernard Hopkins, a Floyd Mayweather, even a classy guy like a Miguel Cotto. You touch a fighter like that, most great fighters that I could ever think of, you touch them like that on the chin, and they're not just going to take that and smile back. You know, maybe Oscar De La Hoya or Manny Pacquiao would go about it that way, but for the most part, most great fighters, you would see the fighter come out in that moment. I think Tank is telling him right there, no, you didn't. You know you didn't. Because Ryan's saying, I dodged it. Ooh, and I made you miss. And Tank's saying, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. Who wanted that shout out? Nash M1, shout out to you, my man. And so you see the height difference there, and it's not as pronounced as we thought it was going to be all along. You know, because you take a look at, and Ryan and Tank said that. He said, you know, he's not as tall as I thought he was going to be. And then Ryan, with a good verbal counter, says, was that what you were afraid of this whole time? Is that why you rehydrated me? And we'll take a look at some of what Ryan had to say too. But you look at these photos, and the height difference isn't as pronounced as I originally thought it was going to be, as Gervonta apparently originally thought it was going to be. And you compare it to this, and this really was a bigger size disparity for Gervonta in terms of height, you know, and reach. Barrios towered. Look at that. I mean, Barrios towered over him in a way that Ryan just isn't. So, and this is where Tank's seasoning against a guy like Barrios is going to help him out. You know, Leonard Ellerbe, who had a lot of respect for guys like Bruce Trampler and Brad Goodman from Top Rank, who built up guys like Miguel Cotto and Oscar De La Hoya and Floyd when he was with Top Rank up until 2006. They were great at getting their fighters to face a myriad of styles, guys that they were supposed to beat, but increasing in difficulty and different type of styles. And so that once they got to the big kind of fight that Tank's at right now, the real big pay-per-view fight, they were seasoned. And that's going to pay a big dividends for Tank in this fight because, you know, Esau Cruz had that armadillo defense, tucked his chin right into his chest. A guy 5'4", 5'3", knows how to put the pressure on. Gamboa, a guy who's just trying to survive and go 12 rounds, that makes him crafty and hard to hit at times. It's hard to get a veteran out of there sometimes that's still competent enough to survive and just looking to survive. Leo Santa Cruz, you know, a very experienced top fighter in the lower weights. Tank getting the swap blows with him helped him in his experience. And then this Barrios fight is probably the most important fight of them all because you got to look at that height and that range already. Barrios isn't as explosive, as dynamic as Ryan, but he can be, you know, having been trained by Virgil Hunter, he can be a little more disciplined than Ryan in opening up. So, but yeah, to get back to the screen here, not as pronounced a size difference as it was in the Barrios fight, and that you know, bodes well for Tank, I suppose. But in okay, I guess we'll just finish this off here. And so now that size difference for Ryan, because the equalizer for Ryan in this fight was that the overall skills, the overall package of skills, defensive skills, better feinting, things like that, and you know, more of an arsenal with both hands in Gervonta Davis, the overall package of skills and the seasoning, you know, 4 years older, been in a dozen or so title fights. Ryan's never been in a title fight, but Ryan's equalizer was supposed to be his size. They both are very fast and explosive, both punch very hard. But, Tank, outside of the speed and the power, had the edge and overall package of skills, level of opposition, 4 years more in his prime as opposed to still growing and being a little on the, being green at 24. And Ryan's, equalizer was going to be his size to some of that. And it turns out that size advantage isn't as pronounced as it once was. And him not being allowed to rehydrate past 146 is going to further, take away what was originally his equalizer. And so because of that, I think Ryan should really think about doing what Floyd Mayweather did to Juan Manuel Marquez, where he paid 300,000 pounds over each pound over 144. So he wound up paying $600,000 to Marquez for being 2 pounds over at the weigh-in. This is different. This was at the weigh-in, not the night of the fight, rehydrating. But the point was, Floyd came in what he was comfortable at, because winning is the first and foremost thing. And but then again, losing $600,000 out of $40 million is different than losing $600,000 out of $5 million. And I didn't get any. I tried to ask Leonard Ellerby and some of the people involved. I didn't get any specific numbers on the fines he could face. But Mayweather, does Floyd look too concerned about being 2 pounds over? No. Floyd did what winning was first and foremost. And so, and again, some people were pissed at this at the time because Marquez had never fought at welterweight. He was the lightweight champion, and Floyd was supposed to, to make it a little more even on paper, come in at 44 instead of the full welterweight limit. And Floyd, said, fuck that. I'm going to come in at what I'm comfortable at. And I think Ryan should do the same thing to Gervonta Davis. He should come in at 150, anywhere between 150 to 152. Ryan should come in at, and Tank will be in around 145, 146. But instead of coming in at the same weight as him, use what was going to be your advantage all along, your size. And, I say pay whatever it may be, $500,000, 600,000. If coming in at 151, 152, 150 gives you the better chance at winning, then that's what you do, So that's that there. But I want to just take a look at the chat here for a second. War Prime Minister said Tank is insecure. Once a fighter gets up, he's insecure. Benavides too. Definitely a 50-50 fight, says War Prime Minister. Floyd was scared against Marquez, Southern Critic. No, Floyd, won every round against Marquez. And the only good punch Marquez landed in that fight, a looping right hand in the second round. Floyd jumped back about 10 seconds later with a lead left hook and dropped him. And then after that, they kind of played nice, and Floyd coasted to a 12-0 decision. So, what it is I don't like that Tank put in the rehydration clause, because, again, that to me was part of what was going to keep Ryan more competitive in this fight. And also, if there's any chance he's going to hold up with his chin in the air at times, taking the brunt of Gervonta's power, it always helps. Emmanuel Stewart would always mention, I don't know if this guy would be able to take this kind of punch tonight if he wasn't weighing as much as he did, rehydrating what he did. So, that affects punch resistance. It affects conditioning. But that said, it's on Ryan for accepting those deals, for accepting that as a grown man. It's on him. He was anxious to get to this point, to get to this fight. He wanted to, he wants the big money, the big fight, without the slow build that really prepares you for this moment. And so in The Art of War, it says how every battle is won before it's fought. He's already lost the first round by ceding the weight rehydration clause. And why does he have to cede that? Because he's the B side. And why is he the B side? Because he hasn't beaten, talk about the level of opposition, if you will, but a slew of guys like Pedraza, like Barrios, like Santa Cruz, like Isak Cruz, even dangerous, explosive guys who were crude, like Rolly. And doing all this over a slow build. Tank's fought 5 times to Ryan's just 3 times in the last 2.5 years. And that's despite Ryan being a lot closer to the prospect contender stage than Tank is. He's supposed to be fighting more often than the guy who's on pay-per-view at this point. And so because he's in the position he's in, and he's been impatient in wanting this opportunity and not being match made and seasoned to this point, he has to take the deal that's given to him from the A side. And that includes the rehydration clause. So that first round in The Art of War, like we put in the title, it goes to Gervonta, even though a lot of people feel like Ryan won it. yesterday because he had a great verbal assault, and we'll go over that verbal assault in a moment because it was noteworthy. Because just like Tank was trying to bully him at the presser, letting him know he's not a complete fighter. All you have is a left hook. He wound up walking into some counter shots. It's like, that's why you had a purse. That's why it looks like you danced with a unicorn and fell through a rainbow and you're going to wake up in the hospital, and all these things that left the audience laughing and left people on social media laughing, just like Tank could walk into the left hook in the ring itself. But ultimately, and again, I'll show you here. We'll eventually get to this video that my man cooked up. 5 minutes of Ryan Garcia verbally destroying Gervonta Davis and pissing him off. And also this video where I was in San Diego a year ago when he was preparing for Emmanuel Tego in his first camp with Joe Goosen. And Ryan is one of the most explosive fighters I've ever seen up close in the gym, and he is a very gifted young man in terms of his punching power and hand speed. So I don't count him out despite saying what I'm saying about Tank. And we'll take a look at this here, just how impressive he sounds, without even fully committing to his punches, just what kind of snap and explosiveness he generates. But yeah, it's if you're Gervonta Davis and to take it to the street, to like a street level, if you've been slowly building and there's this guy who just wants to come on the corner and knock you off and go from here to here while you've been steadily building all the way there, it doesn't work like that. It's, you're not going to beat the slow and steady, it's not likely you're going to beat the slow and steady build with the quick come up, and I think Ryan and Tank's mind, I'll be damned if I worked out all this clout, all these pay-per-views, fighting in LA, Atlanta, New York, doing all this, getting, I've slowly, since getting, anointed by Floyd and being Floyd's, young protege and young killer, I've slowly built into this. And so what you're trying to do is come in here and in one fell swoop, knock it all off. And the reason why it's going to be hard for you to do that is you haven't had the seasoning that Gervonta has had to get to this point. That's part of why he's in this position. That doesn't mean with one left hook, with that hand speed and that explosiveness and that talent that Ryan has, that he can't upend all of that. But if every battle is fought, if every battle is won before it's fought, Tank's in the lead. And we'll just to get it right there from Sun Tzu, every battle is won before it is fought, from Sun Tzu in The Art of War. And the first battle with the rehydration clause, and then the other battle with how your preparedness, fail to prepare and you're prepared to fail. Ryan, back to what Ellerbe did with him, taking a page out of Bruce Trampler and Brad Goodman, putting his guy on the rise in fights he's supposed to win, but against different type of styles and veterans, Esau Cruz, Pedraza, Barrios, Gamboa and Santa Cruz. And so, if on paper, before the fight's won, seasoning, being a complete fighter, and Tank kept saying that, I'm a complete fighter. You're not a complete fighter. All you have is the left hook. And I do think Ryan finally started to show a better jab right away in the first round against Javier Fortuna. He was more active with his jab in that fight than he was in the past. So he did start to show improvements, and you expect that at 23-24. But one thing that I'm talking about, yeah, he's still improving at 23-24, but the big show is here now. You forgoed your seasoning to get the big money, to get the big fight. You forgoed the seasoning and the slow build that'll get you ready at 30 fights, 32 fights to really be ready for this moment. You're banking on your talent and your left hook to get it done anyways, jumping up a few levels. But yeah, you forgoed some of your seasoning, and Bernard Hopkins, Sinisa Estrada, Oscar De La Hoya, when I've interviewed them over the last 2 days, they all give me a lot of ifs about Ryan winning. Ryan's going to win if he does this, if he does that, if he does this in training, if he works on that. There is no ifs on the Tank side in their belief. They believe Tank just has to be Tank, the fighter that he's grown into at 28 years old in 2023, the guy who's accurate, patient, takes some shots, but is solid defensively, and with the experience of the Barrios fight, knows how to let the taller guys, maybe get ahead early in the first half of the fight, but figure them out and figure out those angles to cut distance, shorten the gap, and then eventually with that accurate power punching with both hands, find the shots in the second half of the fight. So, you know, every battle on paper, to me, the art of war heading in between the rehydration clause, between the seasoning each fighters have received for this moment, it's Tank right now. That doesn't mean Ryan can't pull this fight off with his talent, because like I said, he is an immense talent, but his seasoning, he's still a raw talent in comparison to Tank at this point. Although in the Fortuna fight, he did begin to finally show some of that jab that people have been wanting, and he's always had a good right hand. It's a powerful right hand. He says actually the right hand's heavier and the left hook's the sneaky shot that they don't see, but he does have a good right hand. And we'll take a look at just how, because again, I don't want this to just turn into like I'm writing off Ryan Garcia. So we'll take a look at some of the talent he's flashed me before. And by the way, we're over 300 people. I told you, BT, I told you we'd be ESPN Live on the Kevin Durant. Shout out to the chat. You guys have give us better live numbers this morning than ESPN has talking about Kevin Durant. So shout out. You guys are doing it for the little guy out here. But take a look at this right here. Oh, whoops. I got to stop doing that. I keep trying to make the video, full screen. Malcolm Emanuel said best journalist in the world. Man, thank you, brother. I had to read that one. That one hit me good. Wilson said he's not talented like that. He's no Boots. His hook isn't Wilder's right hand. Well, I mean, no. Seldom is there a punch in the history of the sport that's Wilder's right hand, but his left hook's pretty fucking good. It may not quite even be Oscar De La Hoya's left hook, but it's pretty fucking good. So let's take a look. Look at Ryan not even fully committing to these shots, just smoothly letting his shots go, and the power and the speed he has on these shots, especially once he lets the left hook go in about 14 seconds after this video starts. Maybe a little underrated smoothness there from Ryan. I agree. Oftentimes he's like statuesque with the upper body movement early, especially early on as a prospect. Once he got to Reynoso, he got a little more flexible, but still never a guy with the kind of great upper body movement of Haney, Stevenson, and Davis. But little underrated smoothness here he's displaying here. And again, that might show up on the fight a little. He doesn't have to be as smooth as Stevenson or Haney because he's a better puncher than them. But he is exhibiting a little smoothness here with Joe Usawakanda. That right there, get that crack. Look how loose. Look at the looseness in his punches and you know, that natural power and smoothness to it.
That second.
Yeah, he's a talented kid. Talented kid. I just don't know when it comes to feints and defense and getting your chin just an inch off the line when you deliver the blow, like Gervonta knows how to do. You know, Gervonta knows how to get that chin just a little bit off the line while throwing the overhand left, while throwing the uppercut, whatever it may be, the right hook. And Ryan, when he throws that left hook, he stands straight up sometimes, and that's where Tank, I think, can very well time him in the exchange later in the fight.
They didn't get him the first.
Plus, yeah, no.
Yes.
Yeah, really found the rhythm. But once you found it, you stayed with it. Yeah. I'm such a believer in this bag now, but it took you hitting it for become a believer. Really
I could see Ryan very well surprising us with his boxing ability in this. I know, you know, this is just the double M bag, but or the Cobra bag, I think one of the bags they call, but I could still, you know, over 100 amateur fights, split 6 fights with Devin Haney 3-3. He's gonna show us everything he's ever had from the amateurs and everything. He's gonna bring out of his bag in this fight. I just don't know if it'll be enough, but
we're starting the old school double lengths, you know, but even better.
Someone talking about the camera quality. This was when we were live. So we pulled this from when I go live doing this. We have this video somewhere, I'm sure, in 1080p or whatever. But
Henry, we're a creation. Thank you.
Ant said over 200 amateur fights. Thank you, Ant.
Fighter Indians. Right.
The Bronco Kid says neither one of them have great defense. Bronco Kid, Tank has good defense. He's a fluid. His dexterity is really good. Very fluid. Can move his upper body. Decent shoulder roll. You know, he's not Floyd. I mean, he gets caught, but I think Tank actually has good defense, and he has good transition, offense to defense, defense to offense. That's most important in the exchanges. And that's where Ryan isn't as good as Tank is. In those exchanges, when both guys are opening up at the same time, it's who can have their who could have their chin an inch off the line while delivering their shot. And Tank knows how to do that very well. Get underneath, come with the overhand, things like that. And so
devastating.
I gotta see that.
But just for the fans, right? I mean, there's like 3 or 4 different drills you can do on.
Joe Goosen, not exactly as tough on Ryan Garcia as he was on Diego Corrales back in the day, telling you better fucking get inside in there in the 10th round of Castillo. He'll need to be that Joe Goosen and not this friendly, partnership with Ryan on fight night. We need that Joe Goosen that was from the Diego Corrales Castillo fight. Because as respectful as Calvin Ford and Bernard Hopkins and all these people are of Joe Goosen, and he is definitely a great trainer, I already know Calvin Ford deep down is thinking, and forgive me here, I'm going to be quite blunt, this white motherfucker wearing all this denim, there's no way I'm going to get outcoached by him. So, yeah, that I know Calvin's thinking. Calvin's too classy to ever say that, but.
No, you counter off those flips.
Rogelio Lozano said Ryan needs to move to jab and move to the left the way Barrera fought Nassim. Barrera is one of the great fighters of his era, one of an all-time great. Barrera had such a great jab in a rematch with Rocky Juarez. He just jabbed him to death after going life and death and going war with him the first time. Ryan hasn't shown the kind of jab that Barrera had at that time. And Oscar De La Hoya, who said he's a huge advocate of the jab, says he would like to see Ryan do that, but it's a if. It's a if. He doesn't expect Ryan to do it. It's not something he's seen before. And that's what I got from Sinisa Estrada, Bernard Hopkins, Oscar De La Hoya, was a lot of what ifs. And from Tank's side, they know that there isn't as much ifs and guessing and questions. Their guy's more of a finished, polished product. They know he knows how to fight as a more complete fighter. And that's what Gervonta was getting at. Pertains to the fight itself. Now, that being said, Tank could underestimate Ryan like he was verbally there a little bit and then walk into a left hook. But and we'll go ahead and take a look at some of what Ryan had to say at the presser too. But let me see a little bit in the chat. The Slav said Tank got a big ass head as big as a beach ball. Melvin Graham saying Ryan is an easy target. He stands straight up. Bronco Kid said, what fights are on the undercard? I still got to check that, Bronco Kid. I'm only familiar right now with the Plant Benavides undercard, which is really strong. Jesus Ramos, Joey Spencer, Chris Colbert, Rayo Valenzuela. Let me see here. Rickety Rocket said he's too stiff. You're fighting a guy who backflips off the top rope. And now we'll go over some of Ryan's verbal game that and sometimes that little witty, maybe underrated IQ he showed up there with his quick wit, it shows up in the fight. And he's a little wittier in the ring than we think. He's not just the fast, good-looking kid relying on the left hook. Maybe he has more tricks up his sleeve for Tank, and some of us believe the way he had some tricks up his sleeve verbally here.
It's great that it's a huge fight, but I'm here to win. Determination you've never seen before. You like to fight guys that don't hit hard. But guess what? I do hit hard. When I hit you with that left hook, yeah, what else? You're going to see every watch. When I hit you with it, you're going to be like, what?
But that's what Tank keeps getting at. What else outside the left hook, you know? And just, again, getting at that he's the more complete fighter. But
sleep. Good night. Exactly. What else? Then you're going to wake up in the hospital. What else? I'm awake now. What else? Wake up. Then when you wake up, then what? When you get slept, all right, you're going to see in the ring.
That Ryan hitting him with that little Southern California slick, you know, in the neighborhood, tapping on people, hitting them with that little, you know, quick wit. You know, when you're growing up a lot of people from Southern California know what I'm talking about there. I'm not from Southern California, but growing up in Las Vegas with tons of people transplanted from LA. And so this is how they're quick with that trash talk in the way Ryan's doing it. The style in which Ryan's doing it here, I've seen it growing up in Vegas with people coming from LA.
You're going to see in the ring. Okay. Oh, thank you. You gave me everything. Listen, your coach, you give me everything there. I know what I got to work on now. You're so smart, man. So when you get up here, you better finish a sentence when you get up here. I need to hear something. All right, we're going to be ready to do it. I've been called out. You know, I've been calling them out for a while. I see a lot of things I could knock you out with. Okay, so when you get hit with the right hand, then what?
Hold on. Brandon Castro in the chat said, this channel is biased. I want to know who you think who I'm biased for, Brandon Castro. I'll get back to you. What's up, Kina Dimitros?
Okay, we're going to see. Okay, cool. Now, you could have knocked out Cruz, who's what? Smaller than small. You could have do a lot of things. You could have do... Were you not? Were you not losing a Barrios? Were you not? Okay, so he...
There's Tank putting his hands on him again. And again, and I'm not saying this doesn't mean Ryan doesn't knock him out with a left hook, even though I'm favoring Tank to win the fight. But you keep putting your hands on someone like Fernando Vargas, Bernard Hopkins, Floyd Mayweather, even Andre Ward, a classy guy like Andre Ward, just about any great fighter I could think. And there would have been a response to some point, but
no, I'm not even worried about it. So why'd you wait, Dre?
Canelo, right? When Caleb Plant tried to get crazy with Canelo, put his hands near him, Canelo immediately, his reflex, his instinct was to punch or smack the shit out of somebody. So
why'd you wait, Dre? So
the Slav, yeah, Matthew Said Muhammad. Yep, the Slav, no doubt. Matthew Said Muhammad, short guy that get underneath, deliver those shots, not get hit in the exchanges. Great fighter. So Brandon Castro said, I saw a video of Ryan's family and your caption of them clowning Davis had nothing to do with what they said. All your captions are in favor of Garcia and against Tank. And same with what you say. Brandon Castro, you know I'm picking... Let me stop screen sharing for just a moment. Brandon Castro, you know I'm picking Tank Davis to win the fight by knockout, right? You know, if you started the video, I said Tank Davis has won the art of war. He's the more seasoned fighter who's prepared himself with the slow, steady build for this big, bright lights moment. So I think Tank's going to win the fight. I think that he's patient. You know, when Lomachenko's patient early in fights, they called it downloading data. And Tank does the same kind of thing. And I think he'll let Ryan start making mistakes. He'll get his timing down because Ryan Garcia is faster than Tank from what I've seen on tape. He actually is faster than Tank. But Paulie Malignaggi used to always talk about varying the speed on your punches. And Ryan's always trying to throw the 100-mile-an-hour fastball. He's Aroldis Chapman every time. And he's trying to throw, as fast as possible. And Tank is smooth with it and placing the shot, and, and Tank is very fast too. So at some point, because as fast as Ryan is, this used to happen to Amir Khan too, although Ryan's not as reckless throwing 6, 7, 8 punch combinations like Khan, begging to be countered and punched in between his punch and time. But when you throw every shot at that speed, a guy like Tank, who has very good speed himself and good athleticism himself, it's easier to pick up on his rhythm. Tank's rhythm's a little hard to pick up on. He'll vary the speed on the shots. He'll change levels with the shots with both hands. So because of that, I think Ryan will be ahead halfway through the fight. I think Ryan is the kind of personality and fighter and man that rises to the occasion. The bright lights will bring the best out of him, I think, Ryan. You know, he loves his Lupe Fiasco superstar ring walk entrance. Is pretty dope. And, you know, he's built for the bright lights, I think. But I think he was a little anxious in getting to this moment, and that will ultimately bite him a little bit in this fight, is that lack of seasoning, being a little raw compared to the seasoned 28-year-old Tank. So I think Ryan will be ahead halfway through this fight, but I think at some point Tank is going to time him in an exchange where Ryan's chin is not off the line, but Tank's is. And maybe an overhand left is what I'm seeing. It's not an uppercut because Ryan's not going to be staying in there like Leo Santa Cruz. I do think Tank will get his attention at some point with a couple of body shots. He's not Errol Spence. He's not going to throw a million body shots, but just enough to get his hand, just to work his eye levels a little bit, and then that'll set up the shot in an exchange. And I just got the sense, leaving the press conference yesterday, that it was going to be a very fun fight, a great fight week. It's going to do great business. It's going to be a really great and fun event and fight, and that Ryan's going to rise to the occasion and fight well, but that the real serious business inevitably is going to come down to, in the sport, you know, in terms of who's the best, it's going to come down to Gervonta, Shakur, and Haney. And I think those fights, unfortunately, are probably a longer ways off away from being made than they are sooner. But that's just the sense I got, you know, leaving yesterday. So I hope that addresses some of you thinking I'm biased one way or the other. May the best fighter win, by knockout preferably, by exciting knockout in this fight. And again, with Ryan's, you know, God-given talent and hand speed and that beautiful left hook and his underrated right hand. And he finally did start to use the jab in the last fight against Fortuna, who's a southpaw like Tank. Ryan could pull this off, but I got to pick Gervonta Davis, you know, to time him up at some point in the exchange, and timing will beat speed later on in the fight. And I got to give it to Tank winning this fight. But it was a lot of fun. And we will resume Ryan's verbal badgering here. Oh, shout out to Podcast. What if Tank hurts his hand like he did in the Isaac Cruz fight? Can he win on points? I think if Tank hurts his hand like he did in the Cruz fight and performs like he did in the Cruz fight, really just letting his right hand go and doing enough to coast and get by, he could lose that. He'll probably lose that fight. That won't get it done against Ryan Garcia. Just the right hand, trying to set up right hooks off the jab, not being able to throw that left hand at all, like in the Cruz fight. If that happens, he could be fucked. Yeah, I can see Ryan Garcia winning this fight if that's the case. So that is something. Solid question.
Really think what he thinks. I mean, if he
and thank you for the super chat Podcast.
His left hook, I'm gonna keep letting him believe that. I mean, it's all on him.
Aiden said that Ryan can win the fight by winning on points, and Bernard Hopkins said the same thing. You know, Ryan, but that's Ryan having to fight a perfect kind of fight, and I don't know if you know, if he could do that. You know, I think the way Ryan wins this fight is that Tank gives away the rounds like he always does early. Ryan's ahead at the halfway point, and now Tank has to start pressing and Tank has to start cutting the distance, and that's where Ryan can walk him into the hook at that point, and that's what I think Ryan believes will happen.
But knock him out, and that's it. See you April 22nd. If he thinks all I have is left hook, I'm gonna keep letting him believe that. I mean, it's all on him. I mean, he's going to run into other shots and he's going to be confused. So it don't really matter. He just sounds dumb right now. If he's watching in my fights, he understands that I got a lot of other punches. So.
Like what?
Okay.
Like what?
And you haven't watched my fights. So what are you thinking? No, you haven't. So all I got is left hook. My fights is the left hook. All right.
That's it. Left hook.
And you took forever to knock out Fonseca. I knocked out Fonseca one round with what? A left hook. It's just blessed by God. Don't be mad. The left hook's best.
Good counter shot by Ryan right there. I knocked out Fonseca in one round, and that was Tank's worst performance since he's been a world champion. Was Fonseca on the co-main event of Mayweather McGregor. Fonseca made it, Tank was kind of weight trained, had a terrible time making the weight limit in that fight, was super flat, wound up knocking him out in the 8th or 9th round with a shot that kind of looked like it was behind the head, but he really was flat and bad against Fonseca, and Ryan took him out in 1 round. That's their only common opponent.
I know you mad, but it's okay. Maybe all I need is a left hook. Maybe that's all it's gonna take. Damn. Maybe it is. Maybe I just got a left hook. Thank you, God.
Right.
He's gonna try to walk me down like he was saying yesterday, but when he feels shots like this, he's not gonna want to do that. And when I hit him to the body and take a lot of
maybe that'll be true. Ryan Tank, who doesn't throw a lot of, he never really throws above 40 punches around. Seldom. I mean, he'll do it here and there, but for the most part, he's anywhere from 20 to 35, 38 punches around. And if he feels power that he's never felt before, that can make the punch output go even lower. So, we'll see.
Aggression out of him. He can't do that the whole fight. I mean, he could try, but once he starts getting touched that body, it's gonna be different. I mean, I got a lot of ways to stop him. I mean, he gets hit a lot. You see Leo Santa Cruz is putting so many hands on him.
What happened to Leo Santa Cruz?
Yeah, great. Found the drug. That's why you're a great fighter.
Right, still sleep. Right behind. That's a fact.
That was funny. But, like I said, I got a lot of things to stop him. Don't even talk about stuff. I don't even know what you were wearing yesterday. You look like fell through a rainbow. Like, just stop. You look like you danced with a unicorn. Just stop. You woke up with the
Chad, do you think Ryan already had those premeditated, the dance with the unicorn fell through? You think that was a cap he already had, or was that off top?
No, it's a vintage store. Just stop. Please.
Didn't Ryan get caught by Luke Campbell? Do I hit harder than Luke Campbell?
Oh, real quick. Bronco Kid said, who has better hair, Sean Tell or Joe Goosen? It's got to be me right now in 2023, but 20, 30, 40 years ago, hands down, Joe Goosen. That certainly would have to be Joe Goosen. Anyway, back to the important part.
Do I hit way harder than Luke Campbell? Yes or no, Brian?
Okay.
Huh?
You don't even understand. All right.
Okay.
How tall was Luke Campbell? Do you ever think about that? How tall are you?
Bro, you're not even that
man. That's a different range.
You're right, Ryan. That's a different style, but that's the best fighter you faced, and his style was nothing like Tank. And Tank has seen a style in a build like yourself, Mario Barrios. And that's where that seasoning is in Tank's favor.
Is that what you were scared of? Are you scared of height? Like, come on, man. If that was what you're scared of, man, that was okay.
It was way taller. Depending on the front run for the people. That's it. I see a guy she's making it's an act. That's what he is.
And also a little underrated, gamesmanship by Tank by wearing an Oscar De La Hoya shirt. Oscar has had his problems with Ryan Garcia, so we don't know just how close that relationship is, despite them being fighter and promoter. And then, we know he's very cool with Canelo Alvarez too. So Tank, trying to say, and then Bernard Hopkins told me Tank was telling him in the face-off in New York City, he's not built like that, OG. He's not like that, OG. OG, he's not like that. OG, he's not like that. So Tank is trying to say, the Canelos, the Oscars, the Bernards, they're really with me.
That's what it is. Like, when you see me in the club, what you ask me? Be honest.
That's how we're gonna fight. I went up to your table by myself.
No, you
gotta. How many people you had? You gotta roll with me. I go by myself.
Dan R said Ryan uses his distance better than Barrios. I'm not so sure about that. I think Ryan is definitely more dynamic and talented than Barrios. Punches harder at the weight they'll be fighting at than Mario Barrios, but Barrios was disciplined, almost a little too disciplined against Tank. Like, he was afraid to open it up a little bit, but Virgil Hunter had him fighting a very disciplined style that did make good, decent use of range control. And that's why it took a while for Gervonta to get going in that fight. It's just that Barrios wasn't really taking a lot of chances either and was maybe being a little too tight.
You want to friend after the fight or no? So we can't friend after the fight. Doesn't everybody do that? You're weird. You got no class. So you want to just act big and bad in the club? Come on, man. Relax.
For the people
they saw each other in the club here in LA. He kind of went left. Let's get back to the fight. Let's get back to the fight.
So yeah, I mean, just the way, and shout out to my man Vilify Media for getting that for us. But just the way Ryan was a little, deceptive with his wit there. He may be deceptive with his skills and people just expecting the left hook and the speed on fight night. But let me just take a look here. So yeah, that's how I see that going on. As for what else I saw take place yesterday, I saw some friendliness, I guess, between Golden Boy and Showtime PBC, but not enough to make me think they're going to start some long-term relationship, making fights people want to see. I saw Bernard and Steven Espinoza be friendly and Bernard and Ellerby be a little friendly, but I definitely didn't see Oscar De La Hoya be friendly. He actually talked down on Ellerby being there. Him and Steven Espinoza, I didn't even see them cross paths. So still some awkwardness and between all the parties there. What I actually thought was cool, outside of Ryan and Tank, was talking with Bernard Hopkins and Calvin Ford and finding out that they both, got out of prison around the same time in the early 90s or late 80s, early 90s, and that Calvin Ford was supposed to spar Bernard Hopkins. I guess, Baltimore is a little over an hour away from Philadelphia, and he was supposed to spar Bernard when they came home. So they went back quite a bit, Calvin Ford and Bernard Hopkins. And some of you on my live before the press conferences were announced, I said, what's the over-under on Bernard and Calvin Ford dapping each other up once the presser's there? And I put the over-under at 30 minutes, and it was actually 30 seconds in New York. The minute all parties came together on the stage, they dapped each other up immediately. But two guys cut from the same cloth. And I had some really great interviews with Calvin Ford and Bernard Hopkins about, that whole experience that I think has never been told before, that they go back decades and were even supposed to box each other and get some work in and spar. So you guys be on the lookout for some of the interviews coming on that. And yeah, I got a little bit of a headache going now, so I might end this a little soon. Plus my family, we had to get back to Las Vegas soon, but be on the lookout for that. And my man Kenny Porter is working with Tank Davis now. Kenny Porter is in the role Barry Hunter was in his camp when, as Sean continued on in these big championship fights, they brought in Barry Hunter when Sean got around the age Tank's at now. So he's playing what Barry Hunter was in his camp to coach Calvin Ford and to Tank. And man, I remember Sean and Tank sparring up at Mount Charleston when Sean was getting ready for the Terrence Crawford fight. And that's where Tank and Kenny kind of hit it off. And so now they're working together, but I'm going to call it a little early, guys. Feeling a little under the weather with this headache. Got to get back on the road to Vegas. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. That was the quick Z-cap on the press conference. I'm leaving LA this morning. Check back in with me live Saturday night or Sunday morning, whichever time it starts. Tim Zhu versus Tony Harrison. Everyone have a great weekend, and I'll see you later. Peace.